come once again to discuss things.
You mind if we go ahead and get started?
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay. Hi everyone, I am Zidpart2. Joining me today is Superhero Enthusiast.
Hey everybody.
And today on this Geeky Gentleman mini, or I don't know, depending on how long we go, this could turn into a special, we will be discussing the CG animated series, Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
Yes.
So
we do need to put that definite article in there because this is the Clone Wars, and the 2D animated one was just Clone Wars. No article at all.
I have a question about that. I have a small question about that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that at all in continuity with this? Because, like, I remember watching bits and pieces of the 2D one, and, like, you see Anakin go from Padawan to Master in that one, and in this he starts out as a Master. And there's a lot about it that seems like it's in the same continuity.
I thought it was supposed to be. Granted, with, the whole, like, J.J. Abrams thing now. Like, I don't know what's continuity anymore.
Right.
But, yeah, I always assumed it was supposed to be, and you can kind of see how they sort of fit together.
I guess it's been too long since I watched the 2D one. I just remember bits and pieces of that growing up because I just watched it when it was on, and that's all I really remember. I remember, the Jedi riding like some kind of, maybe even tauntauns and wielding lightsabers. I remember seeing Ventress, and I remember Anakin getting the little rat tail cut off.
Yeah.
See, that's how you know you have true discipline as a Jedi, that they make you wear that hairstyle and you don't complain about it.
It's pretty hideous. But, yeah, a lot of it was action. There's, like, a really good one. I mean, it's basically like, what if they did Star Wars in the style of Samurai Jack?
Yeah, it really was. And I remember, like, seeing Mace Windu take down an army, and that was cool and all.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because, like, little bits and pieces like that, I'm like, is this in the same canon, or what's going on with that?
Because I know it ends right before Episode 3 begins.
Yeah, I remember, like, isn't the last episode Grievous kidnapping Palpatine?
Yeah.
Okay. So, like, maybe I should watch that, and then, like, I'll stop this video, watch that, since it's only, like, 20 minutes long, because they're all, like, really short episodes, and then we'll come back. So, see ya later. Man, we don't have time for that. We'll just continue on completely uninformed, as any normal episode of Geeky Gentleman.
We'll pretend we know what we're talking about.
Exactly. That's just one of those weird things, but like with the Clone Wars, and just for the sake of sanity, when we say Clone Wars, we'll be referring to the 3D animated show throughout, because it's just,
or the conflict
honest,
which it depicts.
Yeah. But like the thing with this is, the reason I started watching it is because I really, really loved Green Lantern the animated series, and I saw from Twitter, because I follow him, Garcilla Velope, and I know I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly, but I don't care. I'm an American, it's my right. I know
Giancarlo Volpe.
Oh, thanks. That's really bad then, isn't it? And I'm Hispanic, so what does that say? Anyway, no, like, I saw that he'd worked on it. I'm like, well, let's give it a shot. I'm in the mood for, like, this, crazy space stuff. And I expected it to be fun. I didn't expect it to be as good as it is. Overall.
Barring some ones that are real stinkers, this is really, really good.
Including Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
yeah, the show is just surprisingly well done, because I was so convinced that anything with the Star Wars prequels is just bound to be terrible. And this honestly, just, you can probably take a couple clips from Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones and then just have this show, and you're really good to go, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, because I think the prequel trilogy really should have just been the war and not the whole lead up to it. But, yeah, and that's the thing that makes me so frustrated about this show sometimes, is it is in this weird place where it exists to get from point A to point C, and it's point B in the middle, and they can only be so innovative with it. They can only do so many things and go in so many directions before they have to bring it back and kind of get on track.
Well, that's the weird thing about it, is it's so much better than the stuff it's about, or the stuff it's set between.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'm not one of those people who thinks that, every single scene in the prequels is just a shit on the fans. I think there's some really good stuff every so often in them. I just think that George Lucas's directing style really ruins it, and I think it's interesting that he's the executive producer on this, because clearly the man has a great vision for this universe, but I just don't think he's very good at executing it himself,
That's what I've always said, is George Lucas is a great ideas guy, but he's not who you want executing those ideas.
I'd be fine if George Lucas wrote the first draft of every Star Wars script, but let someone else come in and tweak it, so we don't get, racial stereotypes and just really awkward dialogue and stuff. But I don't want to make this too much about the prequels, though obviously they have to come up. I mainly just wanted to talk about the show with you.
Yeah, because I feel like the show is just a really great war show. And, I mean, it's a sci-fi war show, but it covers all of the different things. There are clones that have PTSD, and there's all the political intrigue and how that feeds into how wars are fought. It's really, really interesting, and it's almost more traditional sci-fi than Star Wars tends to be. Star Wars is more kind of space opera-y, and this is very kind of about shit.
Yeah, and from time to time they even do the whole Star Trek thing, it works like a balloon when something bad happens.
Everything works like a balloon.
Yes, exactly. No, it's just they even do the exposition stuff in that classic sci-fi way of very simplistic metaphor, and it's really cool. Something you said though, it's very much a war show. One of the things I was really impressed by, especially very early on, and it doesn't really drop throughout the entirety of the show, is how they show what it's like to have battles on different planets throughout the galaxy. There was one series of episodes, and it starts with Anakin's fleet having to get through a blockade so that they can land on the planet with the clones call them tailheads, and that's another thing I liked, is the slang that the clones have, clankers, tailheads, stuff like that. The aliens with the two tentacle head thingies. So they have to break through the fleet, and that's an episode or two. Then they have to land on the planet and just getting to a ground base established as an episode. And then they have to figure out how to defeat the droids and save the civilians, and that's 2 or 3 episodes. I'm like, that is so brilliant. Everything's so tactile. It really is just a very militaristic show in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we get a real sense that they are actually fighting a war. There is strategy involved, and that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I really like seeing a lot of stuff like that, and just the clones. I mean, it seems like it's gonna be, Tim Burton kind of laziness with the Oompa Loompa kind of thing, where, okay, this way we only have to hire one voice actor.
Yeah.
But it totally sells it. The guy, he does such a good job of just providing all these different kinds of characters to the same guy.
Yeah, that's the really astounding thing, is there are so many different clones, and they're all different. And the clones, they brought in a really cool idea, and that is the clones do try and differentiate themselves and try and be individuals.
Yeah, with the hair and the tattoos.
Yeah, and so, like, we do get just a visual sense, which definitely helps, but it's really interesting to see, and it's unfortunate that I guess we didn't get to see this in the Star Wars universe, was kind of the clone rebellion that sort of seems in the show like it's going to be inevitable at some point, because they created all these people who are people, and they're basically just treated like machines, like the droids are.
Yeah, and there's a lot of episodes that deal with that, particularly the one with the Jedi that betrayed them, like the guy that had the two double blade swords, and he had the Mortal Kombat guy arms.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like he betrays the Jedi and everything, and he just like he's just going total Ulysses-esque Grant tactics with it. Just keep marching, we got plenty of men. Keep marching into the fire, they'll run out of bullets, even though they're using lasers.
Which move as fast as bullets.
Which is still one of those things that was like, I remember being in a forum debate at one point with someone. I'm like, well, wait, don't Jedi have faster than light reflexes? And they go, what do you mean? Well, it's a laser. It moves at the speed of light. So in order to block it, you would have to react faster than the speed of light, wouldn't you? No, they move totally slowly. Oh, okay.
But then it's like,
Damn.
How do they get light to move slower than light?
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you run into that problem with lightsabers too, and it's just sort of one of those silly little things. But yeah, you kind of wonder about it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Actually, believe it or not, that entire forum debate I was just talking about, that all sprouted up around. It's going to sound silly. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry versus the Jedi Padawans. That was the debate of who would win, and that was my thing. Is wait, well, Jedis will be able to avoid the spells because they react faster than light. So that's what I had. Anyway.
Speaking of the Padawans, though, there's a lot of good episodes in here that deal with Padawans who are training under. Because I mean, Ahsoka's or Ahsoka, is that her name? Yeah, it's been a while. She's a big part of this show. At least up until the last season, and she, spoiler alert, leaves at the end of season 5, I think it was. Yeah. And
I think something really... Sorry, just to jump on real quick. I think something really important to note is you can tell that the whole Disney deal kind of undercut this show, because what we do get on Netflix, while some of it's good, one of the episodes has Jar Jar Binks, it's definitely not done. You can tell that the 6th season was supposed to build somewhere else, and it just kind of stops. And you can tell that that's just what they had done at that point, because they were still working on the season when Disney bought out Star Wars.
Absolutely, and I wanted to point that out too, was that if this really is Ahsoka's story, I feel like the end of season 5 is a better ending for the series. Because it's like, she kind of walks off into the sunset at the end, they play the Star Wars music, and, we go to the credits. And then it's like, but then there's this extra season of 13 episodes that we're going to throw on the end here.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff in that's really good. Alright, here's what actually made me want to start the video where we did, because we were talking beforehand. Some of the stuff in Season 6 was really cool, though. I liked Yoda's pilgrimage to, get the whole Forced Ghost thing going on. That was really cool. But the one that I thought of that, I enjoyed it, but at the same time it was really weird, and then it was even compounded later in the season, was the whole idea of the clones malfunctioning and carrying out Order 666 too soon. I thought that was really cool. And I'm like, okay, but, Palpatine plays it off, he does his thing, that's great. But then, just a couple episodes later, it's revealed that Count Dooku is the one that created the clone army. And you're like, okay, come on, guys, you still go to war with these guys knowing that they have chips in their brains, that a clone has killed a Jedi completely unprovoked. and that Dooku provided the army for you, and you know that you think that he has a Sith master somewhere out there? Come on. What are you doing?
It's pretty problematic, but I do agree that was... Actually, in my opinion, like, that was the best stuff from Season 6. I didn't care for the Yoda thing, actually, so much. I liked the idea of him having to go learn the Force Ghost dealio, but whenever they did episodes that kind of personified the Force and, like, were these weird, almost drug trip-esque things, I didn't tend to care for those episodes. And
even the one with the light side and the dark side episode?
Yeah, where they go into that big thing that's like the double pyramid in space.
I might have missed that part because I was building Legos at the time, but is that the one with, like, the brother and sister? Yeah. Actually, that's the thing, like, at first I was kind of, passively watching the show, enjoying bits and pieces here and there, and then I saw that story, and it's a little iffy at first, but the moment that sold it for me, and the moment that sold this entire show, that I think just stands really well on its own, is when the personification of the dark side shows Anakin the future. Hands down, one of the greatest scenes I've ever seen in animation. Just everything about that works for me.
There definitely were elements that worked for me. I think my problem was more it just kind of kept going for several episodes, and I feel like those, like that moment in Empire, which I think they're referencing, where Luke goes into the cave and has to fight, like the ghost of Vader or whatever. Like, that's very brief, and it gets the point across, and it's like, okay, we move forward from that. They have a vision, and then it's like, here it keeps going. And I had the thing with the Yoda thing as well. It's like, how much stuff does he have to learn with these weird, like, ghost women? They reminded me a lot of, like, Hexadecimal from Reboot, because they had all the different faces with the different emotions.
Yeah. Like, I guess I understand what you're saying, that it kind of goes on for too long, but I just was enjoying it so much, because, like, I like the way that they portray the Force in this, because Lucas kind of, undermined everybody with the idea of, the Force is biological and stuff like that, and I really didn't like that, along with everyone else. Not because the whole, I want it to be a mystical thing, so much as I just think that's really bad sci-fi writing, because potentially couldn't everyone just start injecting themselves with midichlorians?
Yeah. Well, it brings up, too, like, if it is that, why don't the Jedi, like, allow breeding? Because you would think you would be able to create more and more Jedi and more powerful Jedi. It just doesn't really make sense. Yeah,
it's just like, but I like the way that the Force is portrayed as, like, very, especially during the war, that it's in complete turmoil, and it's just fighting within itself and everything, because the Sith are becoming so powerful in it. But I just, that scene alone, and this is, like I said, it's the scene that sold me, since you're, like, kind of, like you said, since you haven't seen it in a while. I just love that Anakin gets to see the future, and it's such vague images of just things that Darth Vader does, both in Episode 3 and, beyond, and it just all culminates with, Alderaan exploding, and then you see, like, these clouds swirling around him form the Darth Vader helmet. You hear the breath once, and then it all fades away.
Yeah.
And he's just, like, you just see him break apart by witnessing what he's going to do. And it's perfect to me. Like, that is how he should react at that point in his life. I still hate the genocide of sand people thing. Like, I get he's supposed to be upset and everything, but it doesn't work, and this is something that works a lot better. I guess I have problems believing that the character that kills off a bunch of sand people would react that way to seeing his future like that,
Yeah, that's the thing is, I feel to some degree like Anakin especially is a different character in this, and I feel like he's a better character.
Oh, definitely.
Padme as well, and actually that was one thing I did like about this, was they sold the Anakin-Padme romance a lot better.
And they didn't really do enough with it for me. I think there's only like 2 or 3 episodes where they even acknowledge that they're married, which is strange because it should be such a big deal, especially the way they treated it in episode 3. But I don't know, the way Anakin's very protective of her, I liked. And I think one thing this benefits from, particularly with the way Anakin's characterized, is the fact that it's a television show and not a series of movies. Because, alright, so episode 1, you have to introduce Anakin, and it'd be really weird if you introduce this guy who's supposed to be kind of a hero, and in the first movie you see him and he does something bad. So, sure, you have to have Anakin be, white hat throughout the entirety of episode 1, in my opinion. Episode 2, you can start to show him slip a little bit, but it can't be as dramatic as it was. But at the same time, if something dramatic doesn't happen, then you wouldn't necessarily buy the full turn that you have to have by episode 3. So in this, you get to see this charismatic, really awesome Anakin Skywalker, who, because he's in a war, doesn't have to act like a Jedi, and isn't expected to act like a Jedi most of the time. He's supposed to act like a soldier. And you get to see him have these, disagreements with the Jedi and these, relatively small things, but you can tell it's building. And then when something happens, you see that he's very attached to people, which he's not supposed to be. And he's willing to do things that no Jedi should do. Like, there's a scene, I want to say season 2, where Ahsoka's been, kidnapped or something, and he's got a prisoner that knows her location, and the guy's not talking. So he just goes into the room and he's like, "You're going to tell me where she is." And he's like, "Your Jedi mind trick won't work on me." Who said anything about a mind trick? And starts force choking him. I'm like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
It's just, that's what we should have gotten in the prequels. But to be fair, I don't know that you could have done it because you need time to establish things like that.
I think you could do it. It just would take a very, very good writer. And George Lucas is not that.
Yeah. I agree. I guess you could do it, but I think it's much easier, and I think it honestly will work better no matter what in a television show because you have time to let it build.
Yeah, agreed.
Whereas in a movie, you have to do something in a certain amount of time unless you make a 4-hour movie.
Speaking of the movies and stuff, what did you think of that arc that was, I'm trying to think which season it was. It was the beginning of one of them that had them training the resistance group, and they kind of hinted at this is what the rebels are going to be.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
There's a lot of interesting stuff in there, with them talking about resistance and whatnot.
Yeah, I like that one. I don't know. Too much of that just focused on kind of a love triangle thing. I'm like, dude, they're Jedi. They don't care. So I guess I was kind of distracted by that. But I kind of like the idea that the guy who is going to one day lead the Empire basically is training the people that will fight against him, or at least establish the legacy that will fight against him. Weird question. Is Force Unleashed in continuity with this?
That's a really good question.
Because Force Unleashed, they, it's weird that that's such a big deal in modern Star Wars canon, and yet all it really does is just give the Resistance a symbol. I'm like, really? That's all of his lasting impact is a little logo? Come on now. The guy almost killed Palpatine.
That's kind of a big deal.
Right? Give him more than that. I don't know. I actually prefer the alternate ending to Force Unleashed, the Sith ending. It probably would have worked a little bit better if they'd made both endings possible canon as opposed to one cannot be. Because Sidious kills the leaders of the Resistance if you go to kill Darth Vader, so that doesn't work. Sorry. I've got to replay Force Unleashed. That's so much fun.
Yeah, I don't know. The games have always been kind of in a weird place canonically, just on account of them being games.
Yeah. Actually, thought process jumping from Force Unleashed to Star Wars Bounty Hunter to the one cameo that Dooku gets in Star Wars Bounty Hunter to Dooku to connect back to this, so you get to see how my brain works. What do you think of Dooku in this?
I really kind of dig him.
Yeah?
Because I didn't care for him much at all in the prequel trilogy, just because he doesn't really have much to do.
Mm-hmm. And they give him some really awful dialogue.
Yeah.
But what about your skill with a lightsaber? Oh, dude, don't. Just don't.
It's like it's fill-in dialogue of like, okay, this is kind of what he has to say, but we need somebody to come back and, actually write it.
Exactly. No, but like, I agree. The thing is, it cracks me up. The joke I always make, or the story I always tell, rather, as opposed to the joke. So, my friend Drew and I were about the same age when Attack of the Clones came out, and I got to see it before him because of family situations at the time and stuff. But we're looking online, and he goes, Darth Tyrannus. Oh, that's such a cool name. Let me see a picture of him. So we pull up Darth Tyrannus as freaking Count Dooku, and he goes, the guy looks like a fruit. Why would they give such a cool name to a guy that looks like that? And it really is. It's like the coolest Sith name ever. It sounds like a freaking dinosaur with a lightsaber is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And instead we get, Count Dooku. And I think it's weird that in this series, they wait until Season 6 to reveal that that's his name. Darth Tyrannus is Count Dooku. And I'm like, really? They didn't know that by the end of Episode 2?
Yeah, really. There's a couple head-scratching moments like that.
Well, the other thing about, I like him a lot better in this because he's portrayed more as, a political asset than any... he's a good fighter and everything, but he's not a great tactician. He's just a really good political asset. He's, the guy whose face can kind of, win over all these systems that, they need to be separating from the Republic. So that's why Sidious chose him. And I think that's really brilliant. But the thing that doesn't work is Episode 2, Anakin's arm gets cut off by Dooku. And then Episode 3, it's clearly the first time they've seen each other since then, when they fight, right?
You get that impression.
My powers have... Which, God, another terrible line. Yeah. My powers have tripled since the last time we faced each other. Like, goddamn.
Really? There's, an actual metric that... Well, I guess there is with the midichlorians, right?
Yeah, it's just Here's the thing, though. He says that, and I just think to myself, who let the Power Rangers writer into this damn room?
His power levels, they're over 9,000. You kind of wonder, is there that Dragon Ball Z, eyepiece thing?
Yeah, right? His midichlorian count. We did an episode a couple weeks ago, which, kind of got me on this whole Star Wars kick, which made me watch Clone Wars. Just what would we do if we could write Episode 7? And something I would do is, I'd keep midichlorians, but I would kind of, make them not important. What I'd do is, say, I'd introduce a really young Jedi that's, visiting some family or something, and his brothers, aren't picked because they don't have a high midichlorian count or whatever. And I'd almost just have a Jedi lie to them and be like, midichlorians are only part of the equation. That's just what alerts us. Anyone can use the Force if they just try hard enough. You just need that because it's so dumb. Midichlorians.
Yeah, that's how I thought about writing them off, is just kind of saying that they're the result of development of Force powers and not the cause of them.
Yes, so much so. Even if it's a lie, I don't care. It would just be so much better.
Yeah. And then that way you can just kind of brush it aside after that and not have to deal with it again.
Yeah, because Bill and I went through the whole idea of, there being two, a cousin, one's, Han and, Leia's kid, and one's, one of the other kids of the original cast, and there'd be, one would be a Jedi and one would have quit being a Jedi, but he still like has all the skills and stuff. He just doesn't believe in the Jedi way, and I would imagine that kind of character saying something like that.
Mm-hmm.
In any case, not important. Me and my fan writing. No, but like Dooku works a lot better in this because he is totally more of a political villain as opposed to some kind of physical threat or whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, he is a count, right? And then they play that up a lot in this, and I thought it was really cool to see the the Confederacy of Systems Parliament. Mm-hmm. We actually got to see that in this. That was neat.
Yeah, that was neat, and it's just weird though because like the Separatists are really kind of they are so hot and cold in how they portray them depending on the episode because there's one with those Scottish lemur people.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a weird thing to say. There's one, and the Separatists land, and the first thing they want to do is test their new genocide machine. And then you get, like, the Separatist Council, where like, oh, not all Separatists are evil. Well, like, here's an idea. Create your own Separatist movement, as opposed to joining the clearly evil Separatist movement headed by a Lord of the Sith.
Yeah, if you're going to be a joiner, join with the right people.
It's just a very strange thing. Like, they really don't play the Separatists very consistently as far as their political thing, because, like, in Episode 2 and 3, which I don't mind this, they're portrayed as very power-hungry individuals, and that's why Sidious is able to manipulate them.
Well, in the prequels, I mean, we don't even get to see, really, the actual planets. It's all, like, the guilds and the businesses that are
and that's what I mean, like, by power-hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Geonosians are the droid builders and everything, and you can see that they just want to be able to, have this galactic army kind of thing going on, and you get that impression kind of just around the table, especially with the Trade Federation, with the way they want to do business and what they're worried about in Episode 1. You just get the idea that they're power hungry, and that's why Sidious can manipulate them. And this deals with that sometimes, and at other times you have these, political idealists who have joined the Separatist movement because they believe that a republic is corrupt, and they happen to be correct.
Very much so.
But, I mean, it's kind of weird that they joined this other system and they're just blind to its corruption, I guess. Mm-hmm. I don't know, it's very strange. And the other thing about Dooku, though, is just, I'm not sure how much of Sidious's plan he's aware of. 'Cause, like, there's this whole thing with him trying to find an apprentice for a while with, Ventress and then, Savage. So he's clearly doing the Sith thing where he's planning to betray him. But I'm like, do you know that you're supposed to lose? What's going on?
Yeah, I never really got a good sense of how much he was clued into the plan and, how that was all supposed to go. Because, like, I guess Palpatine is playing kind of a Xanatos gambit in that, like, the Confederacy could technically win and he would still be in charge and everything would be fine. But, yeah, I do get the impression that the Confederacy is very specifically supposed to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, they're separatists, right? So, like, they're fighting to separate. They're not fighting to take over the entire galaxy.
Yeah. It's a really weird thing, and I just, it's something that they probably would have explained had they got to finish out the season and know it was going to be their last season. Because isn't there a scene in, I want to say, early Episode 1, or maybe Episode 2, where Palpatine says, then I will have a newer, younger apprentice to Count Dooku. I'm like, does this dude know he's supposed to die? What's going on with this?
I don't know. I guess if you're a Sith, I mean, the whole rule of two really doesn't make a whole lot of sense anyway when you break it down, but I guess...
It does and it doesn't.
I guess Dooku's kind of just thinking, yeah, I'll bide my time and then take you out when I need to.
Yeah, maybe. But like that's a really bad plan to go along with. But I don't really have a lot of other thoughts on Dooku except that he's better in this than he was in the prequels, but he's still probably the weakest parts as far as villains go. To me.
Do you want to talk a little bit about Darth Maul and all that stuff in this? Because he comes back.
Yeah, that's definitely what I want to talk about, and I want to transition to that through Sidious, because I adore the way they do Sidious Palpatine in this.
Oh yeah, he's great.
There are a couple scenes where I'm like, you're just kind of... Like, my biggest problem with... the thing I like the most about the prequels, in retrospect, is Sidious's plan. It's hands down genius execution, right? The problem I have with it is he's so, especially for me, for someone that didn't know it was the same actor the first couple times I watched it. Like, actually, I didn't know that until we just did Star Wars Day, Bobby and I, a couple weeks back. But the first couple times I watched those movies, and the very first time I watched those movies, I had no idea he was supposed to be the Emperor. Like, that was a complete surprise for me, and I'm really glad it was. Because it made the whole plan genius. The problem is he's portrayed exactly how he should be portrayed in episodes 1 and 2, as this very just unassuming old man that just wants to help. And then episode 3, he just starts saying things like, the dark side. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Where did this come from? It's so out of left field that he turns, like, completely evil just all the time now. You know? His portrayal is completely screwed in, a lot of episode 3. Once you become Sidious, I'm like, Emperor that we know and love, I'm fine with it. But just throughout episode 3, he's really inconsistently written to me.
Yeah, he's not... It's like he loses any ability to keep his cover.
Yeah, and through this, there are a couple moments here and there where he definitely does. But by and large, in this, he is the perfect politician, I made a joke while watching this that in season 18 of House of Cards, Frank Underwood is going to become a Sith Lord. Because, like, that's almost what it would be if the show ran too long. But you want to see that now, don't you?
Yeah, I'm envisioning Kevin Spacey pulling this black cloak over his head.
And just narrating to the camera.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
You the true power of the dark side. In that southern accent. No, but, like, Sidious in this is the perfect politician through the majority of the show, and he has moments where, at least he doesn't do it in front of people. Like, he has moments where he, like, has an evil grin, directly in front of people where they can see his face or whatever. There are moments where he has an evil grin, there are moments where he, he says some stuff that clearly show he's scheming, but throughout the majority of the show, if you're completely woefully ignorant, you will never know that Sidious is Palpatine. Like, if you're really not good at picking up on things, you probably would never know until the Darth Maul episodes.
Because that's really the first place that really comes out, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's that whole thing with the, what are they called? The Dugs and the, like, giant monster.
Oh, yeah.
But even then, he doesn't come off as evil, just like, opportunistic. If you're, willing to throw him a bone, which, he would want you to be willing to do. But, like, up until the Darth Maul episode, it's really hard to say this guy's evil. He has moments, like, there's a lot of things where, there's a whole episode about expanding ordering more clones, basically, and Padme's trying to fight against it the whole time because she doesn't want the war to continue, she wants to open up peace talks or something, and they get to the end of it where the Senate votes to do it, and she's talking to him afterwards, and it's like, honestly, I myself don't support this measure, but we must side with democracy. I'm like, that's perfect, right there! Sidious. That's it. That's how you become the most powerful person in the world. You tell everyone what they want to hear from you.
Exactly.
I hope you're taking notes.
Yep. Yeah, because Palpatine always has been my favorite Sith Lord. And occasionally, online you'll see people make arguments about, like, oh, no, Revan was better and stuff. It's like, Palpatine actually fucking accomplished the Sith's goal. He actually took over the entire galaxy.
And eradicated the Jedi for, like, decades.
Yeah.
There were 3 Jedi in the entire galaxy for decades.
Nobody even came close. And really, you have to be the best Sith Lord ever to sit in a room with, like, 10 other Jedi and not have them know that you're a Force user.
Mm-hmm. And that was really cool, too, is just he's so, like, Yoda has that line throughout the prequels and throughout the series, the dark side has clouded our ability, our ability to sense the future, our ability to do this and that. And he's just, that's how powerful he is. And in this, you get a really good sense of how powerful he is. There's one scene where Dooku's talking to him, like Darth Vader did in Episode 5, kneeling and talking to him via hologram. And Sidious gets pissed off at him and Force chokes him. He's not in the room.
Yeah.
The dude's literally across the freaking galaxy and he can choke someone.
That's like...
That's
holy
insane.
Shit. Like, how could he be that powerful?
And it's not even, like, that's the thing is, when you really start thinking about it, it's so crazy because it's not like he just choked some random person. He choked another Force user that he'd been training.
Mm-hmm.
That had also been trained by Yoda. So, like, the guy, if anybody's equipped to stop him, it is this dude that he is choking. That's how powerful he is, and that's amazing.
That's a really good point. I wish they'd brought that up more with regards to Dooku, and that he has trained, under both systems, and you would think he would be potentially a better Sith Lord.
Yeah, and that's just how powerful and how cunning Palpatine is. And I really have a lot of respect for him after seeing the prequels, and especially after watching this. And I guess that gets us to where we got to talk about Darth Maul, because that's probably, besides that moment from the episode I was talking about earlier, where Anakin gets to see his own future, the story arc with Darth Maul and the Boba Fett's people, or Jango Fett's people rather, is by far my favorite.
Yeah, that's really good stuff. And the Darth Maul thing had technically been, I think, quasi-canon for a while. That idea of him having survived the fall and having robot legs is kind of old.
Yeah, there's like one comic where he goes to fight Obi-Wan on Tatooine.
Yeah.
Where he had robot legs.
And, I mean, Darth Maul, I'll be blunt, like, he's not a character in Episode 1. He's just there to fight them.
He's a sword.
Yeah. He's a double-bladed lightsaber, and that's pretty much it.
But he looks awesome, and,
He's the one who should have been called Tyrannus, because fucking look at him. He's got, like, claws coming out of his head.
Yeah, pretty much. But, like, Maul gives you the idea of just power, regardless, though, Darth Maul, like, Darth Maul is what got me excited about Episode 1 when we first started seeing trailers and stuff for it, back when I would have been 11. So just seeing Darth Maul just really got me excited. I went out and bought the damn double-bladed toy lightsaber, and my friends would play in the yards, and, it was just, he was such a cool-looking character, and Star Wars has so much of that, and it was very disappointing for the longest time. Like, I didn't even want to pick up the lightsaber at a certain point, because, he dies in, like, 2 seconds.
He has one line, I think, in the entire movie.
Finally, we reveal ourselves to the Jedi.
And I thought of this, and I'm not sure how much of it is just me speculating, how much of it was supposed to have been implied. Do you think Darth Maul was meant to die in Episode 1? Like, do you think Palpatine intended for him to be defeated?
I don't know if he intended him to be, but I always got the impression, and I mean, I've read a fair amount of EU stuff about Darth Maul, like, I always got the impression that just Palpatine always viewed him as expendable. And not just because he's his apprentice, but just because specifically he wasn't. He was a very good fighter, but he was not the brightest guy.
Not a great Sith Lord. And I think this this episode arc with Maul, he gets one before this, but that's just bringing him back, really. The episode arc where we really get to see him come into his own it just hands down shows, yes, this is Palpatine's apprentice, because what is he good at? Politics and pitting people against each other.
Mm-hmm. I loved how they brought in the Witches of Dathomir in this show, too, because that's another thing from the EU that I thought was always kind of cool. And I always liked as well, like, they're aligned with the dark side of the Force, but they're not technically Sith. And that's the thing, is, like, if the Force is real, you would think there would be more than just two religions based on it.
Yeah, and we get in Season 6, we get the Gungan offshoots that are Force users, too, and it's just, I like the idea of that, but once again, Jar Jar Binks. Oh, I tweeted this last night, and I think I gotta stop tweeting at 2 a.m. and I'll get more attention, but, I was like, I think Jar Jar Binks was just Lucas's way of, like, making us give in to our hatred a la Sith Lord style.
Could have been. Maybe
It was a test.
Yeah, George Lucas is secretly a Sith Lord.
Yeah, he's like, give in to your hatred. And just turn away from the Star Wars. So that he would be the only one that tried to use the Force. Because you've sat there and, like, seen something across the table and tried to use the Force. You know you've done it.
Oh, all the time.
No, but, like, back to Maul just a little bit, because I did like the witches. I thought it was a little weird that they had to be connected to Darth Maul's species, but whatever. I don't know if that was already expanded universe, or they just decided to throw that in there, because I've heard
I don't remember
that this show contradicts this expanded universe left and right, which I don't care.
And that's the problem with the expanded universe, is, like, some of it is very good, and a lot of it is not very good, so I don't mind so much.
Yeah, I just know, like, I've heard a lot of people say they won't watch it because it contradicts the expanded universe. Well, not anymore.
Yeah, true.
And, frankly, it's better than the prequels. You might as well enjoy something from that spin-off.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, what I liked about Maul is you really get to see the way he is Sidious's apprentice and how brilliantly he's able to pit people against each other. But, I thought it was great to see him, really be a Sith Lord. And I've got this theory, and I don't know if it's ever been confirmed in EU or whatever before, but as a Sith, do you get more physically powerful with the dark side the more power you amass in the abstract?
I would assume so.
Because, like, that seems like what tipped Sidious off, is Darth Maul, had gained control of a planet and was going to eventually gain control of his own system, thus adding a third side into the war. And, like, you just got the sense that that's, like, what dinged Sidious's bell, and he's like, okay, now I gotta go shut this shit down.
Yeah, because that really would have screwed with his plan.
Yeah, and, like, I hear the argument that it's kind of silly to see the Emperor, be able to fight and stuff, and that he shouldn't have to because he's supposed to be so powerful with just the dark side of the Force. But damn, that was such a cool fight scene with Darth Maul and Savage and the Emperor. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm very much in that camp of, like, if he can force choke a dude who he's trained from the other side of the galaxy, he shouldn't need to use a lightsaber. And I was always under the impression that originally the only reason Vader used a lightsaber was because he just used to be a Jedi. But it was a damn good fight. I agree with that.
Double wielded and stuff. It was just so cool, and I really did enjoy seeing it. And there's a part of me that, like, I can honestly never complain about the Yoda versus the Emperor fight in Episode 3 because I had a Lego Emperor and I had a Lego Yoda, and what did I make them do? Fight. And, you will not judge me for this because you would have done it too if you were my age and had that.
Yeah, but...
It is a little silly, yes, but they take it seriously, so I can't fault them for it. They at least portray it seriously. Yoda doesn't throw around one-liners or anything, so I gotta give him credit. So I get to enjoy it, and the fight scene with Darth Maul, and like to a certain extent, I think you would have to be as a Sith, because you've got to fight Jedi. You know, like, as a Sith, it's going to eventually happen where you have to confront a Jedi. And it would feel weird if your only defense was Force Lightning, which can, be turned against you immediately. If the person's quick enough, which, Jedi are pretty damn fast. So I think you'd have to have some skill with a lightsaber.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of metaphorical stuff that goes into the lightsaber and, discipline and sword fighting and all that stuff. So it makes sense that the Sith would potentially, I guess, use that as a tool, at least early on.
Yeah, like, I don't mind the lightsaber duels, but I get where they're coming from with he's old, and so is Yoda, and they shouldn't ever have to fight because they are just such masters of the Force. But, I mean, come on. Come on. You gotta admit in the back of your head it's cool. Some part of you enjoys it, and you know it. Give in to your... I'm so happy that I got to be drawn as the Emperor. I'm so excited about that. I'm gonna use that as often as I can.
You should.
Like, Milan and I have been discussing taking the title cards and just changing facial expressions and turning them into, like, a webcomic, and I think I'd be using that all the fucking time. It's just ridiculous. Just make myself a legit Sith. Just all the time. Just give in to your emotions. And that's another thing that I kind of liked about the way Anakin was portrayed is... It's a little inconsistent about what a Jedi actually is in the prequels, which is when we should get a better sense of it. Mm-hmm. And you get the sense that we don't have time to really fully flesh out what a Jedi is in the original because, shit's going down. But you get a great sense of it in this show about this person that is very stoic, very able to remove themselves and be just incredibly disciplined. And I like that you get to see that Anakin doesn't believe in that, and that's what they were trying to do in the prequels, but once again, you just need more time to do something like that to its full effect, I think. And this uses it. He's always willing to put his emotions first and sacrifice himself to save his friends or whatever, and it just happens to work out for him all the time, so no one can really fault him for it. Which is, I think, really smart. You get the sense that because there's a frickin' war going on, no one has time to lecture the guy that's getting the most results.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And that's really effective. It's used incredibly effectively, and it's one of those things where I'm curious how much of the war, like they talk about the war going on, and I'm curious how much of it is just Palpatine letting it drag on to further corrupt Anakin, because you can tell he had his eye on him from episode 1. He was like, "In Skywalker, we'll watch your career very closely." Mm-hmm. Which I just, God, it's so good.
Yeah, Palpatine just was pulling so many strings, and you kind of wonder, it's like he's going to make all the puppets dance to the same tune, and it's got to be extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm. It's just a really well done show, I think, and the one thing we didn't talk much about, like we started on it, then I kind of had to make the point about the season 6 being shorter than it should have been. Mm-hmm. The one character we didn't really talk about was Ahsoka, and I think we got to talk about her before we really wrap up.
Yeah, she had a really interesting arc in this, and she was just sort of thrust upon Anakin at the beginning, and I think she really helped him kind of become somewhat of a better person, but then, sometimes a worse person. And that was really interesting to put him in sort of that role of responsibility for someone.
Mm-hmm. And I like that the Jedi constantly comment of, you're learning the wrong things from your master. That's perfect, because Anakin doesn't listen to what a Jedi should be. it's very much, as much as the actor cannot deliver the line because, I don't know, he was Arnold Schwarzenegger's son and that just, was a trauma on his acting career forever. As much as the kid cannot deliver the line, I like the idea that he thinks of the Jedi as this, mythic hero that goes around and, just helps people with all their problems and solves everyone's problems. And through the prequels, through this show, you realize that's not what a Jedi is. A Jedi is what the Republic needs him to be. And sometimes that means doing something that kind of, fucked up. Constantly they want to help people, but they can't because the politics won't allow them, and they have to respect the politics and stuff. And Anakin just won't have any of that.
Yeah, and that's a big part of what drives him towards the dark side is because there isn't that politics. It's, my will is law.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier, you get a better sense of the Jedi, and you get a good sense of why Anakin is a terrible one and why the dark side's so much more appealing because, honestly, part of the Jedi mantra is very hypocritical in that, listen to or trust your feelings but do not act on your emotions is a very strange idea to have, right? Mm-hmm. It's very, very hypocritical. You should do what your feelings tell you, but not if any of those feelings might benefit yourself. What?
And it's kind of interesting to see, too, how Ahsoka, who was, trained by someone like Anakin, who had all those issues with the power structures and the politics of what he had to do in Jedi, that she would leave the Order later on. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and it's really disappointing that you never really get to see what happens to her, because she leaves the Order, and then, what is she going to show up in Episode 7 and be fully grown? What's going on?
She'd be an old woman, I would imagine.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It depends.
I don't know what her species age is like, so.
Well, Shakti, the only thing that, you get, physically older like normal people, but also the tentacly things get longer. That's all I can really give you. Because
they'd be very, very long.
Yeah, there's that clip where she gets to see herself as, older.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
She's got just longer things, and then you got Jedi Master Shakti, who's just another of her species, and she's got longer tentacle things too. Mm-hmm. Got all this tentacle talk. Just give me a Jedi Cthulhu bucket.
Yeah, well, kind of Kit Fisto is like reverse Cthulhu. They're on the back of his head rather than his face.
Right.
That's weird. All this tentacle talk, and Milan's not here.
Right, it feels wrong.
He's here in spirit, I guess. His forced ghost is with us.
Milan would be the worst person to be haunted by, because you'd just be annoying.
It's funny, because as soon as you said that, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it'd be like.
You'd just be sleeping, and you'd hear him, yelling at his parents in the other room. We did the Godzilla's a terrible roommate thing. I don't know if you ended up watching that or not.
No, I never saw it.
Okay, go watch the intro to the Geeky Gentleman Godzilla review for 2014, and you'll get a kick out of it because I got to stretch my animation skills. But we did the Godzilla's a terrible roommate, and all it is me living with Bill and him being incredibly annoying and destroying things. And then at the end credit stinger thing, we have Deadpoolzilla show up, and we're probably going to make another where he's really annoying, and Bill is too. And they're living with me, and I just have to deal with it. And I want to end that one and spend, however much money to fly Milan out here for one shot where we just see him standing at my front door, and I go, no, fuck you, leave, now. Because that's exactly what you would do if Milan showed up at your front door with a suitcase. No, get out. not having this shit.
I can imagine, though, Milan being this Jedi teacher, and he's there as a Force ghost, and he's trying to give you advice, and he's like, no, Papa. And he's no, I'm trying to talk to my Padawan. he's just like, he keeps trying to give you, advice on how to use the Force, and it's just like, he keeps getting interrupted.
And that's when you realize that, like, wait, are your parents oh god, you're a crazy Force ghost, and your parents are schizophrenic illusions that you argue with. You're like Norman Bates. Shit.
Like I said, it could all just be a big performance art piece.
It could be, but like I don't think anyone's that creative. Anyway, back to the show. I really do like Ahsoka, and she's a great character. Now, I'm very disappointed that none of the animated stuff really gets to see her finish her journey. With Disney talking about making a Star Wars movie every year, I would really like to see them give the if it's possible. I don't know what the legal thing is here. I would love to see them get these animators and cast back one last time to do kind of a wrap up movie, or at least finish a final season or something.
I think a wrap up movie is a really good idea, since a movie is what's been the show off.
Yeah, because there's just a couple things set up throughout the seasons that never really got paid off.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was Darth Maul, because he's left on kind of a cliffhanger about what Sidious is going to do with him now.
Yeah.
And I do love that line. The rule of the Sith is that there can only be two, a master and an apprentice. You have been replaced. Oh, God, that's so cool. And he just starts, he kills Savage, and he disarms Maul, and he starts hitting him with the lightning. Maul's like, mercy, mercy. Oh, there is no mercy. Oh, my God, damn. You killed his brother in front of him. And you see just Maul becomes that little boy that got kidnapped by Sidious in the first place, which was great.
Yeah, and I loved that they used that little bit of stuff that did happen to Maul in episode 1 and use that to build an entire character from. Like, because he feels totally betrayed and just thrown away.
Mm-hmm. And it's got to be one of the most horrifying images of Darth Maul with robot spider legs.
Yeah, and just completely batshit crazy, too.
Yeah. Yeah. But, like, it's weird. So you know where you can find Darth Maul's origin?
Yeah.
It's a very, like, short little comic that's in the back of a video game, and I don't like a Star Wars racing video game. There's a little comic book that came with it, I remember, for PS1, I think.
Oh, that pod racing game.
Yeah. I think that's what this is from. It's a very cartoony comic book in which you see a very young Darth Maul on Coruscant, and he's in an orphanage, and he sees someone with a lollipop, so he goes over and takes it, but a guard sees him, and they start chasing him through the city, and you can tell that and it's very cartoony done. You can tell that he's very Force apt because he keeps getting away with them by just trusting his instincts, and it's very just urban ninja kind of thing as he's running through Coruscant, and he's sitting there eating the lollipop, and Sidious comes up behind him, and that's all I think we have for Darth Maul's origin. Is this very cartoony comic book?
There's a couple things that I've read. There was like a Darth Maul journal, basically, that came out, I think, with episode 1. I'm trying to think what it's called. I think it's just like, basically, if you just look up like Darth Maul journal, you'll find it.
I think I remember seeing that in like bookstore windows at the time.
Yeah, it's not very thick, but it's pretty cool. There's another one that's, I think it's Darth Maul Shadow Hunter or something, that's set before episode 1 and kind of stuff that he was doing then, and it's pretty interesting.
Interesting. Oh no, it's just like that's the only thing like that I've heard of where like how he got associated with Sidious. Is Sidious just basically kidnapped an orphan and started training him, and I'm like, that's interesting. That he was like he grew up under Sidious, so like, that was in the back of my mind as I watched that scene where he's like, no, mercy, please. He just turns into that little kid again. Like, you can tell this has been his entire life.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But, yeah, there's Ahsoka, obviously. There's Maul, and then there's the giant monster that Sidious wanted to make weapons out of. And those are the three that pop into mind of things that they never quite resolved.
Mm-hmm.
That they were clearly setting up. The other one that they resolved with the Maul story was the whole neutral planet thing with Kenobi's the girl that Kenobi loved and would have left the Jedi Order for.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
really pleased with how Maul didn't want like your typical vengeance where kills Kenobi or whatever. He just kills the woman that he knows he loves in front of him and leaves him to live with that forever, and that was perfect. Because he's like, yeah, I killed your master, and now I killed this woman you love, and I'm going to keep surviving, and you're going to have to live with that. Because you're a Jedi, you can't come after me for revenge. So that was really clever.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just, like I said, a couple things, so it'd be great to see them spin off a movie and just let this conclude, because I think it more than anything else that I've seen deserves to be concluded.
Yeah, definitely.
Or deserves to have the Disney's fight for the rights for it, because like I don't know what the legal standing on it is, if Cartoon Network still has any of the rights left to it, or what's going on with that.
I really don't know.
But yeah, any final thoughts you wanted to get out?
No, just to kind of reiterate what we have said this whole time. If you have to see anything really from the prequels, like, this is it. This is an incredible show, and it's definitely worth your time.
Yeah, didn't you, I think it was you sent out a tweet a couple weeks ago of someone that had edited all 3 Star Wars prequels into one movie?
Yeah, and I never got a chance to see that because by the time...
It got taken down immediately.
Yeah.
Damn mouse. No, like, I think you could probably watch that, assuming it's good, which, I mean, if you're only taking the things that work, it can't be that bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You just have to deal with some hammy acting from Anakin's character. Like, how sorry I am for Anakin Skywalker that he got 2 bad actors in the prequel.
Well, Hayden Christensen isn't really that bad of an actor. Like, I've seen him in other things, and he's good. It's just the direction from George Lucas. If you watch on the special features, like, he'll give a decent line reading, and then George Lucas will be like, "No, cut. Well, we're gonna do this differently," and he'll take him aside and like say something to him. Then, we see that the same line being read again, and it's like really flat and wooden. And then George Lucas is like, "Great, perfect," and it's like, the fuck? Like, this is horrible.
I've had that feeling for a while, but just, like, not necessarily bad actors, but just terrible portrayals.
I mean, Natalie Portman is not good in the prequels either, but, like, she has an Academy Award, doesn't she?
Yeah, Natalie Portman's a great actress. I mean, I love her in V for Vendetta.
She's great in other things. It's just George Lucas sucks the life out of everything.
Yeah. And replaces it with crappy CGI racial stereotypes.
Yeah.
How is Jar Jar Binks supposed to be Chewbacca? I don't understand the thinking there. Anyway, all right. I think that's my final thought. Is how someone explain to me why Jar Jar Binks is a substitute for Chewbacca in anyone's mind. Is it just because he's an alien? Is that it?
That's pretty much it.
Okay. And, like, that's my biggest complaint about this show, besides kind of just some inconsistencies that, like, really make the Jedi kind of look really stupid between 2 and 3 with all the revelations they have, is the show has too much Jar Jar Binks, and I have no idea why they used Jar Jar Binks more than once. Like, honestly, I think the show could have killed him if not for the fact that he's in episode 3. You realize that Jar Jar Binks is one of the most important characters in the prequels because he is the one that lets Palpatine become the Emperor
Yeah. And I kind of wonder if that was like a big middle finger to the fans who didn't like him. George Lucas was like, "Fuck you guys! You know, I'm gonna make him more important."
A racial stereotype. Like seriously, Jar Jar Binks is like one Yes'em master away from just being old Hollywood black guy.
Yeah.
I want to see someone. All right. If someone out there can do a decent Jar Jar Binks impression and record themselves singing "Mammy," I'd be very pleased. Because that would be the perfect metaphor for what that character is.
Yeah.
But we're just complaining at this point. So, but yeah, I agree with you, Alex. This is the thing to watch from the prequels. You know, everyone. I'd like to think that everyone in the geek community has seen them, so that we've all been through that, you know, turmoil together.
This is our big support group meeting where we say there is something better here.
Yeah. Like I think if nothing else, the prequels serve as something to show you how bad things can be in the geek community when everyone's just like, oh, this movie's the worst thing ever. It's like, it's not Phantom Menace, guys. Just calm down. Even Catwoman isn't Phantom Menace, because at least no one expected anything from Halle Berry as Catwoman.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm going nowhere. I just don't want to quit complaining at this point, because it's entertaining to me.
There's a lot to complain about when it comes to the Star Wars prequels.
There really is, and I'm not one of those people that hates them to death, but just, God. Alright, so let's go ahead and wrap up. Alex, if you had to give the Clone Wars a score of 1 to 5, and you got to use a creative noun, and, you know, don't be obvious, don't say anything like lightsabers. 1 to 5, what would you give it?
I would give it like a good 4 or 4.5. Force Ghosts.
Okay, alright. I will give Star Wars The Clone Wars, the 3D animated show that may or may not be in continuity with the 2D animated show from like 10 years earlier. Well, not 10 years. A couple years earlier. I'll give it 4 out of 5. R2-D2s, because
Clone Troopers, droids, those would have been better ones for us to go with.
Yeah. I don't know. It's such a... That's the other... Alright, the final complaint. I wouldn't have cared if you had C-3PO and R2-D2 in the prequels. But, like, that they're main characters is such a problem. And it, like... You know, you could have had C-3PO just been Senator Organa's protocol droid. That's all it would have been. And everyone would have been happy. But no, he's like, oh, Darth Vader built me, and then doesn't recognize me at all in any of the other movies. No, but I'll give it 4 R2-D2s that are still cool, but have no reason to be there out of 4. Okay. So everyone, thank you for listening. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I'm the Enthusiast.
And we are your geeky gentlemen. And we will be discussing things and complaining about the Star Wars prequels.